Hey everybody, thanks for coming on to Connected Live with me today. I'm a little bit late, but only 2 minutes versus a half an hour. So thank you so much for whoever hops on, whoever has time. If someone wants to hop on and join in the conversation to contribute in a positive manner, I've seen that people can do that. So I'll open this up to a group chat so other people can share their stories of what they're experiencing in a positive manner along the ways of what I'm discussing in the topic. You know, I've been keeping the Great Awakening at the forefront of all my discussions lately of Connected Live. As many have been hearing, I've been sharing a lot of my personal story, which I really hadn't done before because I'd been very careful in literally crafting my persona for business as a holistic healer. And I have succeeded in doing it because when you talk too much about the metaphysical, the quantum physics, the woo-woo, as some people call it, you lose people because they're all subconsciously trained to believe it's all BS, that it's witchcraft or negative. And the fact is that it's been completely the opposite. It was really interesting. As far as the Great Awakening goes, I'm going to talk about the specifics of connection. And took me a while to find the name for my healing work. And it came to me at the appropriate moment, and that was over 10 years ago. And I had been practicing before that. And I talked about connection all the time, but I couldn't figure out how to put it into a name. And I finally did. So for the majority of my career, including as a young person, as a little kid, I would make arguments about things going on around me that I was trying to speak up about, whether it was in school or at home. And people in authority really invalidated me. There were, that's not all connected. What are you talking about? You're not making sense. And it happened to me in school really frequently. And it's amazing how many schools I went through. I was dubbed a problem and not being able to get along. And I was just trying to make connections. And I was trying to stand up for things that were right. And I didn't realize specifically that I was standing up for connections, but I just saw how everything was connected to how people treated animals, to how people treated others, to how people did business, to education. And this was as a really small child. And then as I moved up in my career, because I got such a pounding, I literally learned how to tone it down and be quiet because I realized I was in a hostile environment. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to survive and thrive in a hostile environment that was not friendly to any of the thoughts and the knowledge that was within my head. I was introduced to Edgar Cayce and Tesla and Einstein and Walter Russell, and I began to read about those individuals. Walter Russell in particular, I really followed, and I felt such a deep connection to Walter Russell's work. It spoke to me in a way that I went, oh my God, there's someone out there that was like me. He passed away in the 1960s. And the media dubbed him not the Michelangelo. I'm forgetting his name right now. My brain's all over the place. But he was dubbed, a very important person from the Renaissance period, and that he was that of our time. He was genius, and he was. He advised presidents, he advised corporations, CEOs. IBM did not fall during the Great Crash of '29 because they followed his principles of think and connection. You can find his books online. Please read them. His scientific books, you'll have to read each page a few times. I'm a genius level IQ when I got tested, which is kind of funny because I always come off kind of light and airy, but Walter Russell's information is absolutely brilliant. I have to read his bloody pages like 3 or 4 times when I go into the science part of it. But these people were all about connection, and they understood you have to have, like in business in particular, you have to have a good product. You have to do right by your employees. You have to do right by their communities, and then you have to do right by every single person you do business with. And if you do that, you not only will make billions of dollars, but you will be insulated from the negativity in the world. And proof of that was IBM did not crash in 29 when the Great Depression occurred. And it was because they followed the energetic concepts of positivity. And also, the reason you don't know about Walter Russell is because he would not remove God from science. He said it was absolutely impossible. Tesla agreed with him. Einstein agreed with him. But they all kind of bowed to modern science and the wishes of whatever was going on back then. And Walter Russell wouldn't back down, and he wouldn't remove God from it. Through the years of my practice, I tried to be very careful about how I spoke because I didn't want to alienate people I could help and kind of help show them the way. So I didn't talk in terms of God. You know, I talked about universal oneness. I talked about the creation. I talked about God, light, love, Buddha, any way you could think of it, in order to try to show people how everything is actually connected. And as we're going through the Great Awakening, like I talked about the other day, this is about really waking up to how the evil has been pervasive in everything, and that people, like, it's right there in front of them, video right there in front of them, and they refuse to see the satanic nature of it. And it's not just about politics in the United States, and it's not one candidate or another. We're in a worldwide fight between good and evil. It's actually going through the universe right now. It's every level of dimension, other beings. I know people get really twitchy about the talk about aliens, but it's real. I mean, I've had my encounters with them. I have not talked about it because I just did not want to lose my credibility, and I really set out to make my career robust. And to be honest, at this point, I'm willing to lay it on the line because you have to take a side. And you are either believing the mainstream media, which is all controlled by the darkness. There's not one media station that is not controlled by it. And if you just open your heart, and I've had I've had a shit radar for a long time, bullshit radar. And whenever I respond violently to something, I can't understand it. Like, I just get really incredibly passionate about it. I have never been wrong. I really haven't. I know somebody very close to me pointed out, well, you were wrong about your first husband. No, I wasn't. I lied to everybody. I really wanted to believe that the package that person was in was what was supposed to be good for me. And I listened to everybody else. And in year 2, I got a very clear message that he was not the person he claimed to be. And I should have gotten out then. But because of my Catholic background, and you stay married, you don't give up, I stayed in it, trying to wake this person up. I'm praying to God I was wrong about the person, and I wasn't. And every year, for 12 years, it just got worse and worse and worse. And I stayed in a very hard lesson. So I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm a human being like everybody else, but I'm telling you, when I have aggressive reactions to the point where I'm like having a temper tantrum like a small child, I know I'm not wrong. This masking thing, it's a muzzle. I've had other people say, oh, I'm just chatty as ever now. I'm chatty even with the mask on. It's doing something so negative. If y'all want to wear a mask, great. But I'm violently, like, I can feel it inside myself. I like a growling wolf defending its territory. I can feel something's wrong. This is not right. You do not stop a virus, a microorganism, with a piece of thing on your face. It's going to go in through broken skin. It's going to go in through the eyes, which they clearly said the main point was the eyes. It can go in through the ears. What are you going to do? Wear a bubble? Terrain is everything. Pasteur admitted on his deathbed he had it wrong. Everything is connected to now. Pasteur went down the wrong path on his deathbed, said his counterpart, Beauchamp, had it right. The microbe is nothing. The terrain is everything. And what has the darkness been doing for decades? It started polluting our food system back in the 50s. GMOs. It's so clear. Our soils are depleted. We're not getting the same nutrients out of food. So yeah, you've got to take a lot of supplements in order to give this physical thing we're in what it needs to be the best machine. You're not going to put subpar fuel into a race car. You're going to put the best fuel possible. And people are like, well, I want my donut. I want my sugar. I want what tastes good. They don't even realize the programming that they're under. A person who truly loves themselves cannot eat like that. You just can't. Even if your mouth craves it because you've been programmed. I've fought the programming myself. And thank God, most of the time I win the battle. I'm still fighting the programs I was under. Shut up. Don't be seen. Oh, if you're seen, you put yourself on the government's radar. They start looking into you. You'll be persecuted. When I came out as a holistic healer, my poor father, who one day I'm going to talk about my dad because my skills did not come from where my mom thinks it came from. It came from my father. My father was like, you're going to make yourself a target? I can't believe you're doing this. I thought the man was going to disown me because all the education that was put into me, and I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, trained to do, be at the social level I was supposed to be at. And when I came out, I was like, Dad, this is what I was meant to do. I know it, and I'm so sorry if I'm disappointing you. And he said, you're not a disappointment. I'm going to get misty. There are very few times my dad's ever validated anything I've done. I always felt the lesser of the three children because I struggled in school. I was always a problem. And I really, I didn't feel like I had an identity. And I don't think my parents did that on purpose. I think they just didn't know what to do with me. And I didn't know what to do with myself. All I knew is that I was crushed for a while, and then I rose back up. And I was quiet about it. I found a way to find my way through, but I was always what I felt like the lesser child. And my dad said to me that particular day, it makes sense. It's who you are. You've always stood up. You've never backed down. You've stood up to adults when you were a kid. He said, this makes sense. And I'm afraid for you. He said, you're going to be a target because people like you throughout history have been targeted. So I'm afraid for you. And there's a lot of bad people in your profession, a lot of charlatans. And I said, Dad, weren't there a lot of charlatans at the ad agency? Weren't there a lot of charlatans and dark people in law school? And he said, I guess, kid, you're right again. Yes. And I said, there's darkness in every profession. All I can do, Dad, is hold the light and take every bit of education that you gave me and everything that you exposed me to, and use that in order to help people be in the light. Now I'll get to my main point, connection. When you're authentically connected, you have that bullshit meter. You can hear the lies. I can't even, for the first time in my life, I can't turn on the TV. I can't turn on the TV set. I can't listen to mainstream media. It's like someone's pouring acid on my eardrums. I am looking at obscure videos. I am getting information from Telegram, and things are resonating as true. Not because they're freaking agreeing with me. There's stuff that I'm finding out there that I'm like, no, please don't let that be true. No, that can't possibly. And then I do more research about what the people are saying on Telegram and other places, and I go, oh God, yeah. Connection gives you a bullshit radar. And I've had it my whole life, and it's just getting more honed, if you will. And connection, I've always said this. I didn't want to speak in a particular vernacular because I didn't want to alienate. I didn't want to speak from a certain dogma because I didn't want to alienate. I work with people from all religions, and I've seen people of the light across the board. Basically, everybody's talking about the Creator or God or love. God is the purest source of love there is. they just all have a different road to get there. And then the really ones stuck in dogma want to claim the only path to God is, the path they've been taught. I having been raised in Catholicism, and I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore, but my foundation from Catholicism is there. But I sensed the darkness even there. When I went to Catholic school, I had one nun stand up for me. To this day, I still remember her name, Sister Helen. And Sister Helen took me aside. She was an older lady, and she was light. Like, as a child, this was before middle school, I remember seeing her, and she had light all around her. And the other nuns scared the living shit out of me. And then I heard about nuns, and I heard about the darkness in there. And I heard about the darkness with the priests. And the priests even scared me. I think I know 2 priests that I wasn't afraid of as a kid. And I refused to get into confession. Good morning, Jay. Morning, Paige. Sister Helen sat me down, and I'll never forget it. I remember her being close, and she whispered. She was so afraid someone would hear her. She said, never be alone. Travel in a group. And I said, I don't have any friends. She goes, I know you don't, but travel behind the groups. Don't be alone. Don't go with anybody and be alone. Always make sure there's more people. Make sure I'm around. She gave me one warning one time, and I never ignored it. And now, all of these years later as an adult, I know what she was trying to defend me from. Do you know, I don't remember one student. Well, actually, I remember one student from that time. She had red hair, and I don't remember her name. But we had to do, and this is important, and I'll get back to connection. We had to do, the blind Santa Claus. And I had no friends in school. I'd stood up to too many teachers. I was really a pariah. And I sat there, and she was picked to be, my secret Santa. And she gave me this beautiful pin of a horse. And I had it up until about 10 years ago, and I don't know where it went, but I had it for a long time. When I was in the feeling really down, prior to this mess happening, prior to moving here to Oklahoma and the whole thing happening, I was in the parking lot of a grocery store, and I was feeling down. And this woman who I do not recognize her at all. She had white gray hair, but she had the body of the little girl with the red hair that I remember, but I didn't know it was her at that point. And I just hear a voice behind me going, Gabby McAllister, is that you? And I turned around, and she was right behind me, which never happens. No one ever sneaks up on me, by the way, because I'm just too attuned to my surroundings. But she did. She was right in front of me, and she's looking. She goes, Gabby, do you remember me? Do you remember me? She said her name, and I said, Our Lady of Good Counsel. She goes, yes. And I said, I'm sorry. I was like, she goes, I gave you the horse pin. And I went, oh my God. I've had that pin for most of my life. You were the only one who was nice to me. And she was tough. I remember one time she actually beat me up in the playground because everybody told her to beat me up. She was tough. I was not tough back then. She beat the living daylights out of me. And I looked at her and I said, I'm so sorry I didn't recognize you. And she goes, oh, you haven't changed. You still look like that little girl with the big eyes. And I was like, that was before middle school. I said, I think I'm a little older. I said, I'm 47 now. She went, you look so young. And she said, but really how I recognized you? And I said, okay, I'll bite. How'd you recognize me? The light around you. She said, I'm sorry everyone was so cruel to you. You were right. You were the only one who stood up to the mean teachers. You were the only one who stood up. And the light around you, it was like you were an angel. And I just sat there with my jaw dropped. Like, this person I don't remember yet. She so clearly not only remembered me, but recognized me all these decades later. And that's what I mean about connection. When you're connected, these things don't happen by accident. God starts to work and show you reality and truth. And you have a defined bullshit meter. And you're put here with mission and purpose in your heart. And that woman, she's a grandmother. She asked me if I had kids, and I told her what I did for a living. And she goes, of course you heal people. That's what you did in school, and you didn't even know you were doing it. I remember you. You've affected my whole life. This person I don't remember. I was ashamed of myself for not recognizing her. The point is, we all have way more in common than not. How do you recognize the MSM lying to you? The lies are so blatant. Like, I don't know how people don't see it. Like, how people are still arguing with others that see it, like myself. I don't understand. When you're connected, you clearly see how everyone has more in common than not. I don't blame anybody for the horrible things I went through. I don't blame the priests. I don't blame the teachers. I had those lessons. I either chose to rise above or chose to be a victim, or worse, chose to get programmed. Somehow I never got programmed. But so many have. You're programmed to see white, black, red, purple, whatever. Gender, women against men. You're programmed to see, why did you get a scholarship and I didn't? I should have gotten the scholarship. I deserved more than you. You're taught to compete with each other in very weird ways. You're taught to, even within families, go after each other. Instead of looking at what all of you have in common, so many families are fighting right now. Look at what happened to us during the American Civil War, during between the war between the states, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. Families pitted against each other because people couldn't tell right from wrong. And it's happening again today in a very different way. There are no bullets, thank God, knock on wood, but, you know, how do you believe the lies? How is it that so many cities across the United States, billions of dollars of damage to cities, small businesses destroyed, and people praising it? And it seems like I didn't praise that. And people were telling me that those groups had a right to do that, a right to burn cities down, to destroy small businesses. Nobody was safe. Not even people on the side of the people that were rioting were you safe. They were just beating and killing and destroying. And then we have this issue that happens at the Capitol, and I saw so many holes there because there were a lot more peaceful demonstrators there. And anybody that I've been watching, not once have any of those people said, take up arms. You know, are there neo-Nazis out there and other crazy people on the other side of the pendulum? Absolutely. But en masse, people were demonstrating really peacefully. And I have no doubt that what happened at the Capitol was some kind of weird setup. But yet, you're trying to impeach a president over that, yet those same people going after impeachment did not condemn the cities being burned, billions of dollars in damage. You've got to start to open your eyes and see the inconsistent rhetoric and dogma. That's how the population is being played. I'm completely anti-violent. I mean, sometimes I just really do want to hit somebody with a 2x4. Yes, because I have that in me. I have a temper, believe it or not. But in general, I think the most powerful way to effect change is to just speak truth and hold the light and hold your faith and pray. Nobody has been telling anybody to go out into the streets and start rioting, unlike before. There are too many inconsistencies. And again, I don't want this to become about a political party. I'm saying inconsistencies in truth. They have really successfully disconnected us because all we see is the differences in each other, whether it's different countries, different backgrounds, different religions. But in the end, we're all human beings. We all have more in common. I was just watching the movie by Clint Eastwood. I think it's called Letters from Iwo Jima. And there's a really poignant moment where the Japanese have an American soldier captive, and he's been shot. And the person in charge says, get him help. And they said, but we don't have enough medicine for our own troops. And he insisted that the American be treated, despite the fact that their own men were suffering too and didn't have enough medicine, that the American should not go untreated. He wasn't an American sympathizer. He was somebody, do what is right because it's right. That was one of the quotes of the movie. And so a poignant action of the movie was the young man died. Happened to be from Oklahoma, which is really weird because that's where I live now. And he took a letter from the young man's pocket, and he happened to speak English because he participated in the Olympics in Los Angeles prior to the war. And he read the letter, and it was from the young man's mother. And all the Japanese young men were listening to words that were very similar to their letters from their loved ones, of come home safe, of do what is right, don't lose yourself, do what is right. And you saw the lights go on all the young men. And it wasn't about American versus Japanese. It was about showing that we're all human. And we have way more in common than the powers that be want us to believe. And it is the darkness that has perpetuated these lies. I mean, we're literally in an Orwellian theater. And I've seen it throughout my life. I've fought it throughout my life. So some people that I'm watching right now that have government contacts and all that stuff, they're like, well, 7 years ago, I woke up to it while I was transporting whatever. And then a senator told me that 3 years ago that it was about to happen. And then they got on board with the movement of showing reality of how we're being played. Citizenship in any country should be about active citizenship. No one should ever give over their freedom of thought, their freedom of medicine. I mean, I will say the more research, and I did post it on my Facebook page, the more research I do on this jab thing, you cannot infect people with darkness and expect a cure. Let's go farther down into the more, physical level. That thing was created by the very people, the CCP, that brought us the CCP virus. And now they're bringing us the vaccine. The lies and the deception all the way around. And it's both political parties. The United States has lost its way. It's lost its way because it's lost its ethics, its morality. It's lost en masse so much. And those of us that are awake, are trying to not lose this country, because where this country goes, the rest of the world follows. Not because we're so awesome, but because we're one of the only successful revolutions in modern history. Do your freaking homework. Read your Constitution. Since the beginning of COVID, before all the insanity started, I begged everybody, take this time while you're home to actually read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. People have forgotten. I don't know how many people listened to me. I hope they did. But the fact that the media is trying to say we're racist and white people are bad and whiteism was never a good idea. Yeah, we've got a lot of problems in this country, but we have way more good than bad. And the fact that we're being convinced that pointing the finger is the right way to go about it, that's what Germany did. so many, both sides are saying, oh, he's fascist. No, they're fascist. I'm sorry. When you have politicians, the current ones, saying we're going to hunt down Trump supporters and we're going to publicly shame them and make sure that they can't get work. Anybody else think that sounds like what the CCP does and publicly humiliates people? We're supposed to be allowed to support who we want to support without fear. We're supposed to be able to vote and have free speech. If the other side is so dang great, the side that's promoting censorship, we don't allow that in this country. And people will say to me, oh, well, it's a private company. They're allowed to do that. They're creating public platforms. They're not allowed to do that. That is censorship. It's very dangerous. Even the ACLU, for the love of God, came out against the censorship. As the ACLU came out against Obama for the original NDAA. I screamed about that, and no one wanted to hear, oh, Obama's the greatest president. I went, my God, these people are blind. They're not seeing what's happening. And it wasn't just about the original NDAA was signed in by both parties. I'm telling you, the deep state, the corruption is manipulated by both. And anybody not falling into line is being vastly persecuted. And I'm coming out more and more talking about connection. We are more connected. We have more in common than we don't. Hold on to that. Your fellow human being. We have more in common. We have more common than with other species than we know. I have a 10-week-old pup that is schooling my backside in so many things. They're like traditional forms of training that I know how to do, that have been taught. And this pup is breaking through the glass ceiling of that, and he's basically arguing with me, saying, that way of training doesn't work for me. Try something else. That's him whimpering. I know. I'm almost done. And I've had to redo everything. And I am. So I'm not sitting here telling you I have all the answers. I'm constantly learning myself. What I'm trying to say is, look at how much more we have in common with each other than we don't. And stop taking a party side, because the parties are completely off the map. And this is a way larger battle with the deep state and literally Satanism. I hate to say it because I've fought that category for a few decades. I have not liked talking about it, but turns out about 9 years ago, my husband, my best friend, my current husband, he sent me some videos about Satanism in Hollywood and how dark Hollywood actually is. And I kind of listened to a little bit of it and was like, well, yeah, I don't agree with Scientology, and yeah, I've seen a lot of darkness, and probably the reason I don't have a TV show today is because I wouldn't fall into line, and they knew they couldn't corrupt me. And I've shared the stories from LA, and I felt all the darkness, and I wouldn't play the game. I wouldn't sleep around. I just wouldn't play the game, and I didn't sell the sex, if you will, and I never dressed the way people in Hollywood who make it dress. I just wouldn't. Even today, look at how I dress. I wasn't willing to play the game, and so I never got anywhere, and I'm okay with that. But I can say that, like, when I saw the videos that my husband sent me, I thought, wow, Robert's gone around the bend. And here I am all these years later, and I said to him the other day, I said, you were right. I just didn't want to see that basically what's been governing the world, what's been embedded in governments and most major religions, including Catholicism, the very Vatican, is infested with a death cult. And this child trafficking and adrenochrome en masse with politicians, with celebrities, with governments, it's all real. I didn't want to think that that world was that bad. I really didn't. But what they're trying to do, and they've been doing it successfully, is create lies using media. They're brainwashing people, hypnotherapy. Do your homework. They call it programming for a reason. It's there. They've even changed, and I brought this up over a decade ago in my practice, music. The frequencies that they're using for modern music after the 80s, it got really bad, is a level of frequency that disrupts the brain from thinking clearly, from being peaceful. It's actually frequencies that they use for violence. The frequencies prior to that were a frequency that created calm in the brain. I don't know about you guys, but I can barely listen to Lady Gaga's music. The frequencies literally start driving me crazy. I wanted to like her music early on. I can't, and I see past it now, and I go, oh my God, she totally sold out. Most of the modern music you can't listen to. I'm almost done. Calm down. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Please, being connected is not something that I put fairy dust on you and it happens. It is part of the Great Awakening. I was put here to do this work. I was put here to help with the Great Awakening in my role. I'm not famous, as many people that will listen. Authentic connection and standing in the light and saying your prayers for the good guys. Don't say names. Don't say parties. Stay out of all of that. Pray for the light to win is what I'm asking you to do. Because it's a worldwide battle. And yes, the United States is very close to collapsing into communism, or was. It may not be now. Okay, a few more seconds, stop. So with that said, focus on connection, focus on what we have in common, focus on the light, do your spiritual practice. And if something doesn't feel right deep inside and you're authentically connected, if the media starts to grind on you because you can't listen anymore, it's like you can't listen to the lies. It even happens when I see people post. I can't even read it. So with that, I'm going to go, folks, because I've got a puppy that is about to kill me. He needs to go to the bathroom. That's what he's been saying, and he's been really good about holding it. So thank you for listening in to this Connected Live, and I hope to put this up on YouTube. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye.